Hello everyone, welcome to my 2023 Monaco Grand Prix driver tier list. So once again, we're going to be ranking the drivers from the Monaco Grand Prix based on how they did, mainly in the race, but qualifying also has a big part on this as well. A little bit of a chaotic race actually. I mean, only 2 retirements, but actually probably I've watched 3 Monaco Grand Prix live, 2023, 22 and 21. The 2021 Monaco Grand Prix was actually the first race that I watched, live, like I live streamed it. The first one I watched. And I think this one's got to be the best race, maybe. Yesterday, last year's, not yesterday's. Yesterday's is the one we're talking about now. Last year's was a decent race. It was wet throughout the whole thing. And it was pretty cool that, you had like 4 cars all fighting for the top, for the win for a long period of the race. But this time around, the battle for the win wasn't so crazy, but there was a lot of other stuff, and just the weather change towards the end of the race was the big thing that really made this one exciting. So we're going to get going with this one in alphabetical order like we have them down the bottom, starting off with Alexander Albon. So he finished, let me just look on my phone on the left here. If you see me looking down here, it's because I'm looking at my phone. That's what I've got the results on. He finished P14. I think he qualified, it was about P12 or something that Albon qualified. The Williams didn't look as good as we thought. I mean, he was like P3 in Q1. I think it was just track evolution that put him there, to be honest. But Albon did fine. I think I'm going to put him in B because he did considerably better than his teammate. Although his teammate, in qualifying looked good. Then in the race went downhill. We will get to that later on. But I think it's a B from Albon. He's a few points away from points, so I can't give him more than that. And he was pretty anonymous from what I remember. May have had a couple of little tangles, but I don't think that any of them were really his fault. But yeah, I think a B is about right for him. He's doing a good job. Fernando Alonso now. I've been really struggling. I've put Alonso in, I think, S. For what is this? It's round 7, but we missed Imola, so this is the 6th round I think that we've done. I'm pretty sure I've put Alonso in S 4 times before this. Sorry if you just heard that, my computer making noises. Let me just put that on mute. You probably saw that come up in the bottom right as well. It's just a notification, it's fine. But yeah, it's really difficult to gauge with Alonso because, I mean, Stroll's nowhere. He's really been nowhere, especially this race. And he's in an Aston Martin, but that Aston Martin does seem good. But I just think I've got to put him in S again, because what more could he have done? He was so close to getting pole position, ridiculously close. It's crazy. And then in the race, he did the whole thing of changing onto the mediums when he probably should have gone straight onto the intermediates, but I don't know if that was his call or that was the team's call, and ultimately it was maybe a little bit of a gamble. I still don't think he would have won even if he did go onto the intermediates. I think he would have been right there with Verstappen, because we saw Verstappen really struggling on the dry tyres when it did get a bit wet, so maybe he would have caught up to Max, but then I think Max would have breezed away then once on the intermediate tyres. I really don't think Alonso could have done anything more, and that qualifying performance was amazing. Valtteri Bottas finished P11. I think he qualified up there as well. And you know what? After a lot of pretty poor races from Bottas, this one I thought was decent. I'm going to give him a B, I reckon. I think it was a decent performance from Bottas this weekend. Not really much else to say. I think he got quite lucky because he was one of the earlier ones to go into the intermediates, I think, and that kind of helped him out. But all in all, he did qualify. No, is 11? I don't know. Is 11th a B or a C? I'm going to give him a B because he's had a lot of terrible races so far, so we'll give him a B this time around. Nick De Vries, I'd say finally a decent weekend for De Vries. Probably the first decent weekend for him. He beat Tsunoda in the end, but did have a decent... He got into Q2, qualified P12, so pretty close to Q3 actually. And in the race, he's finished P12. Didn't, from what I remember, have any real moments in the race that I can think of, or in qualifying or anything. I can't think of any off the top of my head. I'm going to give De Vries a B for that. I think it's been his best weekend so far by quite a long way. And yeah, hopefully it's up from here because he's had a terrible start to the season. Pierre Gasly finished P7, which is, I think, about where he started. I think it might actually be exactly where he started. Definitely the weaker of the two Alpine drivers, was a fair way behind Ocon this weekend. I think Ocon did just do an amazing job though, but for Gasly, I think it's a C. I think it's fine. He was a long way behind his teammate, but his teammate did amazing. And I mean, I think that Alpine was better this weekend. Maybe better than the maybe not. I don't know, but yeah, maybe not better than the Mercedes. But it was a pretty good car this weekend, the Alpine. So yeah, I think a C is a fairly decent grade for him. Lewis Hamilton, P4 in the end, qualified P5, finished P4 after, a decent drive. He did have the, it was practice, so I can't really take that into consideration, but he did have a bit of a bump. He almost went out in Q1, almost went out in Q2 as well, but when it mattered, he did bring it up in the race, was considerably better than Russell for the majority of the race, and then Russell got that penalty. So is it an A or is it a B for Hamilton though? I don't know if it's quite A performance really. Sorry if you can hear or see my dog behind. He's playing with his ball, and he's making a bit of noise running around the carpet. Is it an A for Hamilton? P4? He's not got a podium. I think I've got to go B because he's been beaten by Ocon. I think if he gets a podium, it's an A. If he gets first or maybe even second, it might be an S. But yeah, I think it's got to be a B. Maybe a bit harsh, but I'm not really sure there. It's very difficult for a lot of these drivers, Monaco being Monaco, difficult to rank these. Nico Hülkenberg finished P17, did not have, neither has had good qualifying, both out in Q1, and Hülkenberg was pinging off the walls quite a bit in this race, had quite a few issues. I think it's not an F, but I'm almost thinking it might be an E for Hülkenberg because he sent it into the casino, was it? Casino, the hairpin bit, Casino Square, is that what it's called? I don't know. Near the hairpin. He sent it in there, went straight into the side of Sargent, I think it was. And yeah, just had a few little issues. Is an E being a bit harsh? I'm not sure it is. Because I think he did have another couple of moments. No, I'm going to stick with E. The Haas didn't look great this weekend either. Oh, you know what? Maybe I'll go D because the Haas didn't look great. And he was just trying to make positions, but yeah, I might come back to Hülkenberg because I'm really torn between D and E, especially based on some other drivers that I've got coming up that I kind of already know where I'm going to put them. Charles Leclerc finished P6, where he started. Not the best from Leclerc. Of course, he got P3 in qualifying, but then ended up getting a 3-place grid penalty because he blocked Lando in the tunnel. And yeah, ultimately, he did seem to have the pace on Sainz this weekend. He did beat him in the end, but it wasn't the best weekend from Leclerc. The thing in the tunnel, I'm not going to completely blame on him, to be honest. Very difficult in Monaco to stay out of the way, and if he wasn't told by his team, he might not have known. So, is it a C or is it a B? He was a bit behind. Yeah, you know what? I think it's a C, to be honest. I think it's just average for Leclerc, not amazing. Another pretty poor home Grand Prix. One of these days, he'll just get on the podium. I mean, he doesn't even have to win. If he could just get on the podium at Monaco, that would be amazing. Kevin Magnussen, he did not finish. He had an issue at the end of the race and did not finish the race. He was making a few moves here and there. I think he did have the better of Hülkenberg this weekend, so I'm going to give him a C. I think there's not really much to say about Magnussen. He did a decent job, had a few good moves in there, and unfortunate with his car. Lando Norris finished P9. He did pretty well, had a lot of pace on the intermediates. He was like the fastest man on track on the intermediates for a long time. So good job from Norris. didn't really move up from where he, well, moved up one position from where he started, but yeah, it was decent. I think it's a B for Norris. There's not really much I can say into that. Didn't really see a whole lot of him or Piastri in the race, to be honest. Esteban Ocon now. I've just scrolled down. Sorry for that. Esteban Ocon, it's an S. Great race from Ocon. Great qualifying as well. When I saw him pop up into P1, I was like, for a minute, I was like, in qualifying, I was like, can Ocon get on pole here? And he was so close, and he set that lap time earlier than Verstappen and Alonso as well. So really, really great lap from Ocon, and he kept Lewis and at the start of the race Sainz behind at the start of the race as well. Yeah, brilliant job from him. We've got an Alpine on the podium. Going into this year, we were thinking it was going to be, Red Bull, Aston Martin, maybe a bit of Ferrari and Mercedes on the podium. Now we've had an Alpine on the podium. So I think we've had 6 teams on the podium now. So, yeah, really good result from Ocon. Sergio Perez. Last year's race winner gets an F. It was a terrible weekend for Sergio Perez. This was there with the Australia weekend. I think this was worse. No, this was definitely worse than the Australia weekend, because at least in Australia, I think he got up to like P7. I mean, much easier track to overtake around Albert Park. But yeah, of course, binned it in qualifying in Q1. Took way too much speed into turn 1, crashed, started P20, moved up a little bit at the start, then had some damage, fell back, tried moving through again, was just way too impatient. I mean, that Red Bull was obviously a lot quicker than the cars he was trying to get past, and I think he was just getting too impatient and caught up, that he made, I think, at least 2 front wing changes and had a few other issues here and there. It was a big, big weekend to forget for Perez. Quite an easy F. I think possibly the worst driver of the weekend, to be honest. That was not a good weekend for the man who still is P2 in the championship, but yeah, his championship contention has taken a bit of a hit with that one. Oscar Piastri ended up P10, was pretty much there with Norris, actually. I think I'm going to have to give him a B as well. Very good result from Oscar. His second points finish, only 1 point, but he was still there to pick up that point. Had a good qualifying as well, only just missing out on Q3, so very good stuff from the Aussie. George Russell finished P5. Of course, had that 5-second penalty for the rejoin where, well, Perez again actually smacked into him, but that was more Russell's fault. He just literally, he went off. I think he went a bit wide going into the hairpin section into Casino Square, and I hope I'm getting these corner names right. And yeah, came back onto the track and Perez just smacked into him. Ultimately, the penalty didn't really affect him, although I think he did say that he had a bit of damage and was a bit slower after that. So yeah, I mean, it's not awful from him. He did have some decent pace, so I think a C, because that was really the only issue he had. Qualifying wasn't great either, P8. But yeah, I think to still finish P5 in the end is pretty good, so I think I've got to give him a C for that. Carlos Sainz, another weekend for him that he was ahead of Leclerc. He was showing some good pace in Monaco, and he just, once again, he got impatient trying to get past Ocon, broke his front wing. Didn't end up changing that front wing, actually, because the end plate just fell off, and he actually had the pace to keep going like that. But yeah, just had issues from there onwards, and ultimately, it's another poor one from Sainz. I think I'm going to stick him in C as well. I think him and Leclerc were pretty even on how they were. I think Sainz, I mean, although he finished behind, I think retrospectively he had a better weekend because, he was only just behind in qualifying Leclerc, and yeah, he had the pace in the race, but ultimately just got too impatient and smacked into the back of Ocon. Logan Sargent, another weekend to forget for him, P18, last of the runners, was getting absolutely mauled by everyone at the end of the race on the intermediate tyres. Yeah, I don't think it's an F. I think it's an E for Sargent. He's a rookie, so we've got to give him a little bit of leeway. But yeah, was not a great weekend from him. Once again, he really needs to step up. I think he might be last in the championship now with that P12 from De Vries. He really needs to step up here because he's showing some good pace. He had a decent qualifying, but yeah, just not doing well in the races, unfortunately. Lance Stroll, another driver who was absolutely nowhere this weekend. P20, DNF, had some damage, was bouncing off the walls like a bumper car. It's an F for Stroll. His teammate was up there almost on pole. Stroll went out in Q2 and didn't have the pace in the race at all and was pinging off the walls. Terrible race from Stroll. Pretty much those two, Stroll and Perez, definitely there for the worst drivers of the weekend. Yuki Tsunoda, he was doing really well, qualified P9 and had some decent pace, and then he had a brake issue at the end of the race. He was actually holding on to that P9, but had the brake issue. I don't think he could have really done anything more than what he did. So because of that, the brake issue, go away, Windows security. I'm going to give him an A because I think there wasn't really much else he could do. He had the brake failure, and ultimately, I'm surprised he even finished the race, to be honest, because he was really struggling at the end there with those brakes. Max Verstappen, it was a win. It was a pretty dominant run from him. He had a few little bumps on the wall in the intermediate conditions, but ultimately didn't really phase him. I mean, that lap in qualifying, like the first two sectors were not great, and he just went absolutely ham. Well, he went to the max, not ham, that's Hamilton. He went to the max in that final sector. That is honestly such an amazing lap to watch. That final sector is crazy. So I've got to put him in S as well. He had a few little bumps in the race, but ultimately he won by a mile and did a great qualifying lap. And then finally, Zhou Guanyu, who finished in P13. His qualifying wasn't great, P19. And yeah, behind Bottas this weekend. I think it's just a good old Alfa Romeo C for that one. Bottas definitely had the better of him this weekend. So there we go. That is my driver tier list for this weekend. Do I want to change where Hulkenberg is, or do I want to put Hulkenberg in E? That's the one thing I was going to think about, wasn't it? I don't know. Does he deserve to be in E? He did have a couple of issues, yeah, you know what, I'm going to put him in E. He had a couple of pretty bad smacks in this race and was once again getting a bit impatient getting past people. So I'll put him in E with Sargent. Means that D, nobody is in D. A lot of drivers in B and C here. If I had to say my driver of the day, I think it would be Esteban Ocon. He did an absolutely amazing job this weekend. Great to have that Alpine up on the podium, and yeah, all in all, a pretty decent Monaco Grand Prix, to be honest. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.